I've been sitting on this one for a couple of days, but I'm home from taking my kid to college, and I really want to talk about the Robert Reich article from just a couple of days ago entitled "The Sleeping Giant is Awakening." You can find it on Robert's Substack if you've not already read it. Right, that title, "The Sleeping Giant is Awakening." After a week of authoritarian excess, the nation is turning on Trump. I found myself reading this piece and nodding and being like, yes, this is exactly how I feel as well. This is exactly the vibe I am picking up from the American people as well. I've seen a number of attorneys and journalists that I follow on Blue Sky also in agreement with this piece. And I saw it's in my queue to watch it after I'm done filming this. Heather Cox Richardson also made a video discussing Robert's article, and I have a feeling she and I are going to very much be in alignment. Now, I know I've been saying for a while that Trump is obviously becoming increasingly desperate as public opinion is ever more turning against him. He is underwater on every single issue. Every time a new poll comes out, his approval rating is even lower than the one before. Right, he is so desperate to clamp down. He's cranking up that heat way too fast. And the frogs are realizing that we're getting boiled, right? The American people are like, this is a bridge too far. This is not how we do things in the United States. And I think it's interesting, like I talk a lot about the backlash effect and how the regime can try and do terrible, awful things to us, but that doesn't have to be a win for them. It doesn't have to be a net gain or them moving the needle. We have an opportunity every time they do something terrible and awful. We get the chance to create a backlash effect where it actually comes back to bite the regime in the butt, where it turns public support against Donald Trump and the regime. Every bad thing that they do, every terrible policy that they try and implement, every law that they break, that creates a chance to build support for the pro-democracy movement and turn people against the regime. And damn, y'all, if we didn't see that abundantly last week, right? Because I know that the regime was trying to use Charlie Kirk's murder as a way for them to advance their authoritarian agenda, right? Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans, at least those in leadership, are trying to create this divide, right? They're trying to paint everybody who isn't a MAGA Republican as like a radical leftist and as like a violent Democrats, right? I know I said that in a previous video, like who would believe that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are radicalizing anybody? Democrats are like, let's go, canvass and get this petition signed. But the desperate, over-the-top rhetoric, trying to paint all Democrats as being like violent extremists. Donald Trump coming out and the FBI coming out and trying to say that all trans people are extremists, trying to declare anybody who is opposed to fascism a terrorist group. Like it seems so extreme because it is extreme, right? It's like, wow, bro, like this is really hyperbolic, it's incendiary, and the American people just aren't buying it. We're watching the regime say that we should hate our neighbors, we should hate our family members. We're supposed to believe that our own community members are all our enemies. We are all Americans. We are all Americans. The division here is the Trump regime against the American people. It's not Democrats versus Republicans. And when we saw all of this rhetoric from Trump, in fact, he said, at the memorial for Charlie Kirk, he said, "I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them." This really over-the-top rhetoric from the regime of like, please, working class Americans, fight with each other. Let's create a civil war where the working class turns on each other, because the regime sees that more and more Americans, no matter what their political persuasion is, I've done a number of videos lately from about conservatives who are realizing that like, oh, actually I'm getting fucked by the super rich. It's actually not my neighbors that want universal health care. It's actually the billionaires like Donald Trump and Elon Musk that are absolutely fucking over me and my business and my neighbors and this country as a whole. And the regime is trying to be like, no, don't look at the billionaires. Don't look at what we're doing. Fight amongst yourselves. So they're trying to use Charlie Kirk's death to paint this false narrative that we basically should have a civil war in this country between Republicans and Democrats. Y'all, Democrats are not radical people. And so when Donald Trump tries to say that anybody who's not a MAGA Republican is a radical leftist and tries to make it sound like Democrats are violent people, like it just, you know, it strains credulity. Minority of Americans voted for Trump, y'all. And amongst that, right, like what percentage is MAGA? A large chunk of Donald Trump's voters are swing voters. They aren't in the cult of MAGA. They're not profoundly loyal. They just knew that life was really sucking for them and their community. And they were like, well, vote for the other guy. We know statistically that if people are not having a good quality of life, they feel that prosperity is, denied them, that they will vote for the other guy. That's as complicated as the politics get for many, many swing voters. So these people are not diehard MAGA. They're not in the cult of Donald Trump. They're not Project 2025ers. They're not Christo-fascists. They're people that voted for Donald Trump because they believed his lie that he would make America great again. We know that a lot of those folks are union members. They voted for Democrats in the past. They voted for Democratic governors. They have friends and family that are Democrats. So when Donald Trump was interviewed on Fox News saying he couldn't care less about mending the political divide that he created after Charlie Kirk's death. And of course, this also culminated with canceling Jimmy Kimmel, which was like, you're not going to let a comedian make jokes now? We even saw Joe Rogan say, what? Comedians should be able to make jokes without the president of the United States having them fired. I mean, go read Robert's full article because he breaks down the timeline of all of the ways over the span of just a week that the Trump regime tried to dramatically escalate their authoritarian agenda and make their rhetoric far more extreme. And how the American people do not have an appetite for that. They're not buying it. They're not believing it. And, Robert describes it as this sleeping giant of the American people starting to wake up to how severe the regime, because I know like you and I, right, people who are deeply invested in politics, like, we've been sounding the alarm for a long time, but your average American may not really until the last week or so have understood the full depth of the horribleness of the regime. Let me read this one line from Robert's article, and forgive my bad acting here. Yes, I was a thespian, but stagecraft, y'all, not acting. Okay. You could almost feel the great sleeping giant of America open an eye and frown, and then blink both eyes and sit up and stretch and then roar, "What the hell is going on here?" There was an immediate, very large public backlash for Donald Trump getting Jimmy Kimmel fired. We saw what Strength in Numbers describes as a Disney boycott that became 4 times as large as any boycott in the last 5 years. Like, once the American people are awakened to how devastatingly bad Donald Trump is for our economy, our quality of life, our liberties, there is no soothing that giant back to sleep. I really appreciated Robert talking about the comparison to McCarthyism because that's a very scary period in our history. It was really frightening for people who were targeted by McCarthy. Robert calls it a communist witch hunt that destroyed countless careers before the American people said, have you no sense of decency? This has gone too far. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? And much like Donald Trump's numbers, which are in free fall right now, McCarthy very swiftly lost all of his popularity. This line here, ostracized by his party and ignored by the press, McCarthy drank himself to death, a broken man at the age of 48. Reich concludes his piece, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I've seen a lot. I know the signs. The sleeping giant always remains asleep until some venality becomes so noxious, some action so disrespectful of the common good, some brutality so noisy that he has no choice but to awaken. And when he does, the good sense of the American people causes him to put an end to whatever it was that awakened him. Completely agree. Completely agree. You could say the cat's out of the bag. There's no turning back now, right? Once the scales have fallen from your eyes, once you are aware, once the sleeping giant that is the American consciousness is awakened to the reality that this regime is devastatingly brutal, is absolutely a threat to our children, our democracy, our future, our well-being. Because again, it is we, the American people, versus the Trump regime. That's it. Us, the American people, versus Donald Trump and his ilk. We have Trump in free fall. We have him increasingly desperate. His regime can see that there are cracks all over the place. Their grasp on power is slipping, and the American people are organizing and rising and fed up. I'm absolutely getting the same vibe as Robert. I have the same level of optimism. October 18th, no Kings 2. Let's show everybody that it's the American people versus Donald Trump.